Hey guys, Shalana here. Welcome to the Binge Zone. On today's video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the girl with all the gifts, breaking down the characters, the plot, and the virus and the zombies of this universe so we can get a better understanding of that pandemic and just what happened in the movie. So this movie is very interesting because of the nature of the virus as well as the nature of the world they live in. But before we dive too deep into what it is, the fungal infection, and the flora of that universe, let's dive into the beginning of the movie. The movie starts off and we're introduced to Melanie. Melanie is the main character, and at first we don't know what's going on. All we see is soldiers bust into her room with guns pointing at her, and this is like, whoa, she's just a little girl, like chill out. We don't understand the depths of what's happening. Even as she goes out through her day, she goes to class, and we see there's a bunch of other students with her who are tied down to their chairs and held in restraints. At this point, nothing is revealed in the story about what is happening. All we know is, or we suspect, is that there is some sort of experimentation going on. However, we don't know exactly what the issue is. As the movie goes on, we see that the teacher, Miss Justino, goes and touches Melanie, and the sergeant of this military compound busts in and reprimands her. And it's still like, yo, like, what is happening? It isn't until he himself puts his skin in front of one of the students and the student begins to move and gnaw and crawl and snarl, and the rest of the class begin to lose control, and we see that they become like a pack of blood-hungry animals who are waiting to devour him. And he lets Miss Justino know that they may look like kids, but they're not kids, which is what gives us our first indication that, okay, something deeper is happening here. These kids are not normal. Even though we had some suspicions because they're being tied down, we didn't know the extent of it. This facility seems to be a facility that is looking for a cure for a disease that the kids have. It isn't until Melanie tries to eat Miss Justino that she gives herself up to Dr. Caldwell, who's going to operate and do a biopsy on her to create a vaccine for whatever this is. But as they're taking Melanie out of her room and they're bringing her to the doctor's office, we see that they're surrounded by zombies on all fronts, and this seems to be mankind's last base of operations as a way to protect themselves from the outside world. So now we get to see that this is a world populated by zombies. This is the end of an outbreak, and this is humanity's last hope. And these kids, something is unique about them. We find out that these kids, from Dr. Caldwell, we find out that these kids are second generation hungries. Hungries are what we call the monsters, the zombies of this universe. And they're not your typical zombies that get bitten and become sick because of a pathogen or something like that. No, it's more akin to The Last of Us, the video game, if you've ever played it. It's more of a floral fungi type of situation. In this universe, because in the universe of the girl with all the gifts, this disease, this fungal infection, is a mutation of the Ophiocordyceps unilaterus, a type of fungus that mutated and now is infecting humans. And now that is the basis of this entire manifestation and pandemic of this universe. Humans were infected and the fungus did something to them. It goes into the human body and it kind of latches on, kind of like a parasite, and it causes the humans to get this insatiable hunger where they must eat other non-infected humans for their organs, and that way it sustains them. And this is more of a sustaining of the fungus and not the human body per se. And Melanie is part of the second generation. What this means is that Melanie's mother was infected. We see in the movie and we find out that the infection itself is hereditary. So Melanie's mother and all these other kids' mothers were infected and they were found in a hospital. However, when they were found, all the mothers were dead, and the kids, the babies themselves, the newborns, Melanie and her newborn compatriots, were all on the outside of their mother. And we see that the insides of the mother was eaten. The baby was born similar to how normal babies are, but instead of being pushed out, they ate their way out, eating all the parents' organs until they're out of the stomach, which goes to show that this fungal infection affects babies the same way it affects humans. However, the difference between Melanie's generation and the generation before her is that once we regular people are infected by the fungus, we lose our mind and our basic body functions, and we're consumed with consummation of other humans and other animals to sustain us. But with the second generation, they keep their cognitive intelligence and they're more aware and adapt. They're like normal kids with a really hungry appetite. No, but for real, they're like normal functioning human beings until it's time for them to consume it, and that's when they lose all control of who they are. So that is the next generation. So essentially the fungus itself and the mutation is evolving. And we see this throughout the movie because once the compound gets overrun, Melanie, Miss Justino, Dr. Caldwell, Sarge, and 2 other soldiers make their way across London, and we get introduced to other types of hungries. We see at one point they're at a strip mall, and these hungries are inactive, not moving slow, and we see more of a plant-like feature on these hungries because fresh hungries look like your typical Walking Dead, Day of the Dead, 28 Days Later type of zombies where they chase you down, eat you, and they're uncontrollable. They look like decomposing humans. However, these more advanced stages of this fungal disease on these people, they look more plant-like, and they're not really moving, and they're not really active, and they're not really trying to consume them, even though they can smell and see them walking among them. They're not really actively trying. It's like they're almost rooted in the way they are. And being that they're fungus, being that they're fungi, flora, they root somewhere. Plants and fungus plant their roots and they grow there. So at first, initially, that isn't something we pick up on because initially we just see them gathering together. But later on, we find out that when there's a dense amount of hungries and they all congregate together, they begin to merge and create a super hungry flora, fauna type of fungi creation, and that in itself creates these pods. Now, these pods are part of the fungus lifestyle. At this stage, when they're together, it is the sexual mature stage, and the density and sheer number of the hungries together, they come and they create these sporangium seeds, these pods that can create the pathogen for the hungries. Now, before this, the way this disease was transmitted was via contact, whether it's bite or whether it's bodily fluids, extensions, or scratches, whatever, physical contact, and you would become infected with this parasite, fungi. However, with these evolving stages of the fungi disease and these humans coming together, or these hungries coming together and creating a fungi tree, these pods, once we're open, are going to release an airborne pathogen, and now anyone who breathes this in will become infected, essentially bringing the world as we know it to an end, even more so than it is already in the movie. But the interesting thing is the fact that it becomes airborne, it can spread across, and everyone who's not a hungry will instantly die, which is what Dr. Caldwell is hoping to cure using Melanie. Because of Melanie's advanced brains and the way that she functions, they believe that she is the basis of a cure. However, at the end of the movie, Melanie decides that it is not her place to die for the old generation or the non-hungries, and that the fact that she and her fellow other hungry kids are a new generation, a new species, if you will, as Dr. Caldwell called them, something that has never existed before. They are the next step. The fungi and them live in a symbiotic relationship in which they sustain the fungi, and the fungi breeds for them, processes their oxygen, makes them faster and stronger. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. So at this point, Melanie doesn't see the need to sacrifice herself to save the humans. It's the other way around. This is the new world order. These new generation of hungries are the next step. So Melanie releases the spores and essentially kills off all the humans in the world except for Miss Justino, who she uses as a teacher to help raise and domesticate the fellow children hungries, creating a whole new generation. And the metaphorical representation of this movie is Melanie represents a new generation of the next generations, let's say Gen Z, right? And you see Dr. Caldwell represents the baby boomer generation. And in that dichotomy, the baby boomers are more interested about their well-being as opposed to how the planet will be for the future generations. And they want Melanie to sacrifice herself now to protect them. However, because Melanie's race of kids and because of what they are the next generation. So being the responsible adult, Dr. Caldwell should have put the next generation ahead of her own. And instead of working out a cure to essentially wipe out the hungries or the next generation of hungries, they should have found a way to coexist with the hungries, and they don't do that. So Melanie essentially wipes the state clean and recreates the world with human hungry hybrids. And furthermore, they're going to rebuild society. And it's interesting to see where they go from here, because fungi and human symbiosis is weird, because fauna and flora we have a unique relationship with each other. Being animals, we need flora, and being flora, they need animals to grow. So it's essentially a symbiotic relationship as is. But when you merge it into one body, it's very interesting to see how their new society will emerge, because they can't really eat each other because of the fact that they're hungries. So they're gonna have to start eating animals. So will they create a new society? Will they fix everything else? That's a very interesting take that this movie takes, and it shows us that even though there's a pathogen, or even though there's an infestation or infection, whatever the case may be, humans persevere, we evolve, we adapt, and we grow with future generations. We evolve to match whatever the planet is giving us. But anyway, guys, that's it for our ending explained of The Girl with All the Gifts. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section below. If you liked the video, definitely give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you guys have not already, and until next time, binge on.